Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with the Rollup Helper webinar for the Winter 2014 release. My name is Jerry Reed, and I'm with Passage Technology. We are a Salesforce independent software vendor. And today's presentation will focus primarily on the Winter 2014 release. And we'll go through the the normal overview of Rollup Helper for those who don't know about Rollup Helper or haven't heard of it yet or had a chance to check out the Community Edition, which is the free version, of course. And then after the introduction, I'll go into some new features that we've added with the Winter 2014 release. And if there's any questions at any point in time, you can feel free to ask questions in the chat pane. And then after the main portion of the webinar is completed, I'll open up the line for any questions, unmute the line for any questions. But very glad to be presenting Rollup Helper in this new webinar format. We're really excited about the growth of Rollup Helper, and really excited to see all the different use cases for how Rollup Helper is being used by Salesforce customers today. So with that, without ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So just for those who don't know what Rollup Helper is in a nutshell, it is a data aggregation tool for Salesforce. It started out as just a way of summarizing information and synchronizing dates, being able to grab the earliest date or the latest date across a range of child records that were related to a parent. So think about like project management having multiple milestones, and the latest milestone would have the finish date for the project, and being able to calculate that finish date for the project based on the milestones. It's really matured from a tool to really a platform for your needs on Salesforce. So whether you're doing counts or averages or needing to do text roll-ups, you can basically do these roll-ups on the platform and intermingle those roll-up fields with the rest of your Salesforce configuration to really expand the usage of Salesforce. It's a 100% declarative tool, so there's no coding necessary. We basically have built all the coding necessary to calculate the queries that are required for you, as well as all the infrastructure around scheduling the updates to occur. We also allow for real-time updates as well. That is a feature of the Enterprise Edition, but in the Community Edition, the free version, you can run them on demand at the click of a button manually, or you can run them on a schedule. The Rollup Helper really has unlimited use case potential. It's really difficult actually to have webinars or to do demos because there's just so many ways that you can use Rollup Helper. It really depends on how your organization is uniquely using Salesforce. But we always see some pretty common themes, and we'll talk about some of those common themes during the course of this webinar. But for the most part, it's pretty much a product that can be used for any object. So whether you have downloaded a package from the App Exchange, or whether you have installed some custom code from a developer that they wrote, or a custom object, you'll be able to leverage those objects within Salesforce. It's really a platform for accelerating development timeframes and reducing your IT spend required on building out solutions. So if you're a partner of Salesforce, or you're working with a partner of Salesforce and you want them to deliver as much value as possible in the least amount of time, it really can save on a lot of the time spent on developing Apex triggers to roll up information. So, and what I want to leave you with today, primarily, if anything, is just a solid understanding of what Rollup Helper is and how it can be used in your environment. We're in use by a lot of customers, small and large, anywhere from small startups all the way on up to very large multinational corporations. Just some quick statistics here before we get started with the demo. We have some pretty impressive numbers here. One is that we are now the 7th most popular app out of over 400 IT and administrative apps. So that just kind of speaks to the power and usability and utility of the Rollup Helper application as a platform to extend the Salesforce platform. We really grown through word of mouth. When people try to use Rollup Helper Community Edition or they use the Enterprise Edition, they really see the value in Rollup Helper. They can quickly start using it, and it's really just through word of mouth in and of itself, it's organically growing to become a very popular application. We're the number 21 most popular app on the App Exchange. I just checked this morning. That always fluctuates, but that's pretty impressive in and of itself. And also, our customers are also speaking for us. We have nearly 50 reviews that you can review on the App Exchange. Most of those are, reviews from our customers and some from the Community Edition users as well, detailing their experiences of using Rollup Helper, and I encourage you to look at all those reviews as well. We also are in about 3,000, almost 3,000 Salesforce orgs today. So those are Community Edition users, those are Enterprise Edition users, those are customers who have developers, who don't have developers. They're customers that are using Salesforce partners and who don't have Salesforce partners, small and large, across industries. We have an exceptional number of customers in the education industry, nonprofits, many customers in the tech sector with software as well as high technology. And we're really excited about the amazing growth and usage of Rollup Helper. Rollup Helper simply extends the Salesforce capabilities. When you look at a standard Rollup summary fields and what Salesforce provides out of the box with rollups, you can certainly do some rollups and count rollups and do min and maxes. But we've really built upon that capability to provide net new capabilities. So, for example, you can roll up text fields. You can do rollups using complex formulas. So now you can freely use any formula you want, no matter how complex it is, including date fields. So when you're doing rollups that say, show me the number of open cases in the last 30 days, you can have those types of rollups, moving target, rolling time period, dynamic rollups using Rollup Helper. So you'll be able to easily get that information without having to come up with any kludgy workarounds with workflow rules or field updates and things of that nature, or having to custom code. We also provide an average rollup as well, and that's one of the things that we'll be demoing to just shortly here. With Rollup Helper, you can enable data-driven workflows. So the beauty of the rollup is it's just not a report or a view of an aggregation of data. It's actually data that you can use transactionally. So when a case comes in and a customer service rep updates that case, if that case meets the criteria of your rollup, it'll be rolled up, and instantaneously you'll have metrics right there on perhaps the account page that will be useful in workflows or data validation rules. And that's really amazing when you think about what you can do with that data. You can then trigger off email alerts. You can trigger off other field updates. You can trigger off outbound messages, or just create tasks on the fly to assign to people, so that your workflow and your automation in your organization can be enhanced with data that's not just on a given object, but across objects, specifically child objects or child records. We offer, as I mentioned earlier, multiple processing modes. So whether you need real-time capabilities, or whether you need something scheduled because you have a data load, let's say, coming from your ERP system that's loading in sales history, or it's loading in an account master or account updates, you can run Rollup Helper as and when you need it to run, even on demand, whenever you want to do. Perhaps you change a definition of a rollup. Maybe it's only looking at something over 30 days, and before it was looking at something over 60 days. You change the definition of the rollup, you rerun your rollups on demand, and you can keep your data in sync that way as well. With Rollup Helper, really the data is at your fingertips. Whether, as I mentioned before, whether you're using the Sales Cloud, you're using the Service Cloud, you have the Professional Edition, the Group Edition, all the way on up to Performance Edition, or you've had any customizations performed where triggers have been developed, or you've had a developer write some custom code for you, or you have any application from the App Exchange, we expose the user interface of Rollup Helper to see all objects in your org, so you can feel free to roll up any information. Now at this time I want to start talking more, stop talking and start showing you more about what Rollup Helper can do. The Winter 2014 release is now out, and if you haven't had a chance yet to experience the Winter 2014 release, you can go to the URL rh.passagetech.com, and from that link it'll redirect you to a link where you can actually install the package that's the Winter 2014 release. So the Community Edition, as I mentioned, is free, so you're free to install that to start using Rollup Helper for your org. With the Winter 2014 release, we're really excited to present a huge advancement in Rollup Helper capabilities. Before, if you wanted to do a count or an average, you could do it, but it just was not very easy to do. And now we have the capability to, at the click of a radio button, be able to count and average records. So that's really exciting when you think about how difficult it is to actually do these roll-ups in a lot of cases. If you have a lookup relationship, let's say between an object and a parent object, and you want to just count how many items there are in that related list, and you want to just display that on the page, you need to literally, have development skill or hire a developer to write code for you to do that, and even if it's a very simple and an important metric that you need. So that's really an amazing feat now that within Rollup Helper, you just be able to click a count option and just count, a figure up to a parent object, and we're really excited about that. And you can do the same thing with averages as well. We've also vastly improved the performance of Rollup Helper. Before, when you clicked the Run Once button, which is the way that you can invoke Rollup Helper to run for a given rollup, you used to only update 50,000 records in one shot, and now we can update up to 1 million records. And then when you schedule Rollup Helper, you can also have it run for as many records as you have. And so we've vastly improved the refresh potential of your rollups on demand to up to 1 million records. Also, with the Winter 2014 release, we've enabled better resource management so that you can easily change the number of resources that Rollup Helper is using in your org to stay under the Salesforce platform limit. So that's something that's really important when you have a lot of data in your org, or the data is integrated with other systems, or you are looking at a lot of custom code that's been written or triggers. The more complexity you have, or more apps you have in your org, you can use more resources from the Salesforce platform. And as we all know, that there's a shared multi-tenant environment right now with Salesforce, and because of that, we all have to share the same resources, and resource management is very key, whether it's data storage or processing time. And so with Rollup Helper 2014 release, we've improved that. We've opened up some options for the Rollup Helper administrator to configure the operating environment in which Rollup Helper is running in, based on your unique organization's constraints. So without ado, I'm going to go ahead and start with the demo. The first demo is going to be around case management. So that's a pretty popular use case for using Rollup Helper. We have all sorts of use cases for why and how you use Rollup Helper, but this is probably the one that I felt was something that I had seen a lot of from customers as to how they kind of wanted to get into start using Rollup Helper. A lot of customers of Salesforce are using cases to track issues, to track service request calls from customers, and it's a very just popular functionality, and a lot of times people, specifically customer service managers, are looking for metrics around customer support inquiries. So just something simple like counting the number of open cases is actually something that Rollup Helper does very easily. The use case I'm going to show you here is in support of a need that management has, where they want sales reps to follow up with customers who have at least 2 open cases. So obviously, if you have customers that have more issues than not, it is a potential for them to maybe not use you anymore as a vendor, whether you're selling a product or you're selling a service, or maybe they're working with you as any other kind of business partner or organization that's supporting them. The more issues they have with you, the less likely they are to continue the relationship. So as I mentioned with Rollup Helper, it'll work with your workflow configuration and your data validation rules. So I'm not going to go into detailed administration of the Salesforce platform for how you enable workflow and validation rules in support of this use case, but I'll at least show you how you can enable a real-time rollup to get the count of open cases displayed on the account page, so you can easily say for each account how many open cases they have, and then you can obviously extend that value that's been calculated into a report, and if it's in a report, it can be in a dashboard, etc. We're also going to cover another use case around averaging case durations to analyze where you might have problem accounts where cases seem to be taking longer to close than usual. So those are the two use cases I've prepared for you to kind of get exposure to these new Winter 2014 features. And then we'll also talk a little bit about the customization options that are available when you want to set up your Rollup Helper operating environment. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and switch gears over to Rollup Helper. So Rollup Helper is just another app on the App Exchange. So just like any other app, it is an app that you can see in your app selector here in the top right-hand corner. So you can see it's available along with any other apps. And the application consists of a Rollup Helper tab. If you click on the Rollup Helper tab, you'll immediately go to the first step in the Rollup Helper wizard. And Rollup Helper is a very easy tool to use. There's a wizard you kind of go through, starting with selecting your target object, which is the object where you want to have information stored that is an aggregation of some more detailed information or related list information. So that's kind of, if you want to just start off in using Rollup Helper, you can easily just click the Rollup Helper tab to start that wizard. If you've created rollups already, you'll see them all listed on the Rollups tab. And from here, you can see how many rollups total you're using. We have a lot of customers that have over 100 rollups in their org. You can activate or inactivate the rollups, and you can sort on any field you want here to kind of isolate different groupings of rollups. You'll also see the second column here is a little clock icon, calendar icon, and if you see a check mark under this column, you'll know that you've scheduled that rollup to run on a recurring basis. You can also see there's a condition column here which shows you the condition or the filter that's applied for that rollup and what information you want to roll up. So there's a lot of things going on here. I'm not going to go into all the details, but once you start using Rollup Helper, you can easily start to see how all these things come together. And this is just a list view of everything that Rollup Helper has to offer, and I kind of want to show you the different options that are available before I go into a more detailed demo. So for this particular example, what we're going to do is we have accounts, and I'm going to go to one particular account here called United Oil and Gas Corporation. And on United Oil and Gas Corporation, we can see that they've got one case open. So this is actually something that we already created a field called Open Cases New, and we already have a rollup configured, so it's populating a value here into this field, in this case 1 open cases. So if I scroll down, you can see the cases related list. You can see all the cases that this customer has logged with our company. And basically what Rollup Helper does is it will look at, for each account in your org, look at all the cases, compare the cases to the the workflow. I'm sorry, not the workflow, but the rollup criteria. And if the conditions are right, it will roll up the value per your rollup logic. So really, there's two things that are needed for Rollup Helper to be set up correctly. Obviously, first you have to have the product installed into your org, but secondly, you have to have a placeholder field or a target field to store the value. So what we've done before this webinar is, just to save some time, if I go into the setup menu and I go to my account object, you'll see that I've already created a field here to store the value of open cases. So that's something that is pretty straightforward to do. Most people are very well versed in how to do that, and I just created in this case, since I'm doing account, I just created a numeric field, and I added it to my account object, which is my target object. And then from there, it's pretty straightforward what you have to do. You can go to the Rollups tab at that point, and as the second step in the process, you got to create your rollup. So because I already created a rollup to run on that particular target field, I'm going to have to go ahead and delete the previous configuration for that field, because you can only have one rollup setting tied to each target field, so that there's only one rule that's populating that field. So I'm going to go ahead, and I just sorted on the rollups column to kind of go through all my rollups here, and I'm going to just find that one rollup that I already created, and I'm just going to delete that rollup so I can create another rollup to populate into that field. And then now it's just a matter of just clicking New to create a new rollup. And with the Winter 2014 release, we've made some other enhancements. Kind of show you some of those along the way here. But on step one, where you're selecting the target object, in this case, we want to update account information. So I'm going to go ahead and select the account object here. And also, before I move any further, if I go back to that select target object page, that first step in the wizard, you'll also see that you can access any object in your system, whether it's a custom object, with an __C at the end, or a packaged object that is namespaced, from any app exchange process or application, I should say. So in this case, I just wanted to kind of reinforce the point that it works with all your objects in your org. This is a dynamic query, so anytime your org has new objects deployed, it'll also show those new objects in here. So I'm going to go ahead and select the account object as my target object. The next step in the wizard is to select the field on the account object that will be used to track the results or store the actual results of my rollup calculation. So here's where I can go ahead and select that target field. In this case, I have open cases here, and you'll see that there's a label here for the field. You'll see that you have the API name as well, that you've named it. And just as a minor note, you want to make sure that you keep your API names consistent. So it is a best practice not to rename API names unless you absolutely have to. And same thing applies for Rollup Helper as well. Just keep those consistent. So if you're going to change anything, try to change the labels and just know that that label is associated with this API name. But we make it very easy. We show both values to you, so it's easy to make a selection. So we're going to go ahead and select that open cases field, because that's the field we want to populate with the number of open cases that we have. And then here is really a very important step in the process. It's where you define your rollup calculation or your summary calculation. And here's where you want to select what is that child object or that related list from accounts that you want to pick to count information. So in this case, you're going to see a lot of options here, especially when you're selecting an object that's as popular as the account object. You'll see you can roll up assets. You can see you can roll up cases, as we're going to do in this demo, custom objects. You can roll up events. You can roll up tasks. All sorts of information, anything that's relating to accounts you can touch. And also new in the winter 2014 release is we've just made it easier to display both the labels and the API names here of these relationship fields, so that if you've renamed anything or there's any redundant labels that wouldn't necessarily make sense, you can now better accurately pick the relationship field that defines the relationship between the child object and the parent object. So here we're dealing with cases, so I'm going to go ahead and select the case field. And then now I can go ahead and, since I'm doing a count, it really does not matter which field I'm picking when I do the count. So you can pretty much pick any field you want. I'm going to go ahead and just select this field here. And I'm going to go ahead, and you can see now in the winter 2014 release, before we used to just have the concatenate, maximum, minimum, and sum options, and now we've added two new types here called count and average. Now when you select, the reason that the type fields show up second and not first is because this list of options, these rollup options, will change depending on the field that you select. So if you select a date field, for example, here on the left, only the types of dates, only the rollups that can be supported on date fields will be displayed. And so here you can see this particular field that we're selecting is a checkbox field, and you can confirm that by seeing that it's a Boolean type of value here on cases. And so only the relevant rollup scenarios that work with Booleans will display here. So that's kind of why it's a two-step process. So just pick, for count, it really does not matter. Just pick any field you want, and basically you can see that you can count then the cases. So I'm going to go ahead and count the cases. Now I don't want to count all the cases. What I really care about, what the manager of customer support cares about, is just knowing who's got more than just 2 cases. So what I want to do is, first I need that information. I need to know how many open cases they have. But to do that, I need to create a filter. So I could easily just create a new filter by clicking the Create New Filter link. In this case, for the sake of time, I've already pre-created a filter here, which is the open cases filter. So you can name these filters and reuse them across all objects or all rollups for a given source object. So in this case, I already have a filter. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And you can see here I can edit the filter. So if I click edit here, you'll see all the options for editing a rollup filter. You can apply sorting logic. You can pick a filter from a field that is on cases or on any other related object from cases. So you can do filters based on foreign information or related indirect information as well, which is really nice. And you can see here for this particular rollup filter, we're filtering out the cases that are closed, and so we're looking at just where cases are not closed or is closed equals false. I'm going to go ahead and save this rollup filter, and then when I do that, I can go ahead and click Save here on the Define Summary Calculation screen, which will save this count rollup so that it only counts those cases that are open. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And when I do that, anytime you click Save on this screen, it takes you back to the All Rollups view or the Rollups tab. So you can see all the different rollups that you've created. Again, if I go to sort on the target field column there, I can more easily find the rollups that I have in my system if I have a lot of them. And you can see here's that rollup field that I created, the rollup field called Open Cases New, and it's on the account object, and I'm using a CNT or account rollup. I've got a filter condition applied called Open Cases Filter, and it's already automatically checked on the active column, and we're rolling up counts of cases using the case to account ID relationship field. So from here, I can actually go ahead and test out this functionality now because I know my rollup's been created. I know it's active. I obviously couldn't create a rollup without having that placeholder field on the accounts page to be able to select which field gets updated when I perform a count, when Rollup Helper performs the count. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the Accounts tab, and I'm going to click United Oil and Gas Corporation again. And we're going to go ahead and add another case here. I'm going to go ahead and create a new case. And just go ahead and select any record type for this case. We're just putting in a test record. Got to make sure the status is not closed. And just put in some dummy information here. For this United Oil and Gas Corporation, it looks like they have a mechanical performance problem. Go ahead and save the case. And when I do that, obviously the case gets saved. And I just got to make sure that I put in all the required fields here. Now when I do that, I can go back and take a look at the United Oil and Gas Corporation account. And when I do that, you'll see all of a sudden now the open cases have been updated in real time to 2. So that's pretty much the count working in real time. If you wanted to change the definition, of this rollup, you could do that. If you decided, well, you know what, we don't want to look at all the open cases because we have some cases that are sitting out there for 6 months, and we really don't want to see those. You can then apply a filter, a more intelligent filter on this rollup. And you can easily do that just by going to the Rollups tab and changing the filter criteria that way. And it's also really easy when you change the definition of rollup. You can also go to the rollup that you have. In this case, the Open Cases New. Click the Run button, and also click Run once for 500 records. It'll always show you how many total target approximation of how many total parent records you have. So for this particular rollup, it's rolling up account records, or it's rolling up 2 account records, I should say. And so in this situation, it's going to show you around how many test accounts you have, or production accounts that you have, depending on if you're in sandbox or production. And then the label will always refresh to show you how many records you have. Once you click that, it'll update up to 1 million records in one shot. Over time, it does take some time to perform that update. By default, it'll run 500 records at a time, and that speed can be increased. And I'll show you some of those options as well as to how that happens a little bit later when we show you the configuration options behind the scene. But in this case, if I wanted to, change the if I had changed the definition for that roll-up to have, to look at only 6 months of data, I could do that. But then I want to make sure to update all my historical roll-up values that I run the once button to run it for all my records. So that's pretty much the count in a nutshell. The other use case that we had was, the customer success manager just wanted to know for each account, what's the average case duration I have for, a case. So in this one, it's a little bit trickier in that, we need a little bit more information from Salesforce, so we have to create a formula field to know what that duration is for a closed case. So by default, that that information isn't calculated by Salesforce. So you have to do a little bit more upfront work to keep track of case closure age, as we call it here, on the account page. So again, I created a average case closure age numeric field on the account object. You can see it's already calculating that metric here. And how we enabled this particular scenario is we first had to, in addition to creating that field on the account page, we had to go to the case object. So I'm going to click into the setup menu again, and then go into the cases object and look at the custom fields there. And I had to create a new custom field called case duration. And if I look into this, custom field, I can see I'm basically taking the close date of the case, which is an automatically calculated field by Salesforce that is a timestamp of when the case is closed, and then I'm subtracting that from the created date timestamp, which is obviously when the case is created or logged. So the difference between those two basically is a number of days. So now I'm basically averaging the number of days that this case took, and I'm rolling that up to the account object, but I'm looking at all the cases that I care to see, across, a range of cases. So kind of the same thing as account, I'm just doing a little bit more in that I'm averaging. So once I create that formula field, now I can go ahead and create the roll-up for it. Again, it's very simple, very similar to the count. I can go, again, I'm going to go ahead and delete the original roll-up I created because I can only have one roll-up per target field. So I'm going to go ahead and select, let's see here, average case duration. There it is. It was already up the top. So I have average case closure age. I'm going to go ahead and just delete that. I'm going to go click New to create the new roll-up field. And again, I'm selecting the account object as the target object, selecting the average case closure age field as my target field that I had created. If by chance you forget to, create these target fields for your roll-ups, you can easily just click the Create One link to create a roll-up field. I'm going to go ahead and select that target field, average case closure age. Maybe I didn't click there. Yeah. I don't think I clicked there. And then, again, step 3 is very important. This is where you pick your related lists off the account page or the child information. So here, again, we're dealing with cases, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. It'll refresh to show you all the fields. Now, here's where it does matter, to pick a particular field. So in this case, I'm going to pick the case duration field, which is that formula field I created. It's a numeric field that has decimals, so it's a double field. And so here I can do, again, all the options. I can do a count, I can do a concatenate, maximum, minimum, and here's where we've added average now. So I can average the case duration. So I go ahead and click average, and if I wanted to, I could add the closed cases filter here to only look at my case history, my closed cases, and make sure I'm only counting the ones that are going to have the the closed date time stamp field populated. So when I do that formula field calculation, I'll know I'll have a value there. And I'm going to go ahead and click Save, and that's pretty much how easy it is to do an average roll-up. And if I added cases or if I modified cases and they met the criteria of that roll-up, it's going to happen in real time for you. So that's how you do counts and averages in Rollup Helper. We're really excited about that capability. I also mentioned that we've improved the performance of Rollup Helper. So I wanted to just briefly talk about that. So when you go on the run page for a given rollup, as I mentioned, when you first load the page, it just shows you run once, and then it'll refresh to show you, a run once for however many parent records you have. Well, when you click this button, if you end up having like, more than 50,000 records, now you can click this button. It'll show you how many records you have, and when you click that button, it's going to just keep on repeating and running Rollup Helper, remembering where it last left off, going all the way up to the number of records that you have. And if you have a very large number of records, or if you just want to schedule the records, record updates to occur, you can then configure a scheduled rollup here to say, run every, day or every 3 hours for a given number of records. And when you do that and Rollup Helper starts running, you'll start to see when the next run is scheduled and when the last run had completed up here, which is really cool. And so that's the big performance improvement we made with the Winter 2014 release, which we're really excited about. But also, we also have been using Rollup Helper, as I mentioned, in over 3,000 orgs, and we've come to find a lot of different situations where Rollup Helper sometimes will not run exactly how it should run, because it'll run into some governor limits, or there'll be other coding or integrations that are in your org that prevent Rollup Helper from running. So when we run into these situations, it's really important to have more fine-grained control over the Rollup Helper environment. So what we've made available to you is more of an administrative screen here, where you go into the setup menu, you click on develop under the build menu, and go into custom settings. And when you do that, you'll see all the custom settings that you have in your org. One of the custom settings is called Rollup Helper settings. It's a public setting, so you can edit it. If you click manage here, you'll see all the different rollup settings that we've configured. If you click the edit button, you'll see the options that are available to you. And a couple things that I want to point out here, the most notably is we've now enabled for configuration the maximum number of concurrent batch processes that you can have in your org, or the number of concurrent future processes that you can have in your org. And if you ever have problems with running Rollup Helper, someone from the support team will be able to tell you which of these to update. Typically, you'll be reducing these values, perhaps from 5 to 4, from 10 to 9, etc. And now with these options being editable by you, you can ensure that Rollup Helper will run to completion for your rollups if there's a situation where you have a lot of scheduled processes running in your background. So there are many applications on the App Exchange that are using batch technology, and when you have those applications installed, they're also consuming batch processes. So you can only have 5 of them on the platform running at a time. So right now we're optimized to run up to 5 at a time. We won't run more than we can, but if you run into situations where other programs are running and hitting the limits, you can reduce the number of maximum concurrent batch processes that Rollup Helper will attempt to consume down from 5, which will then allow Rollup Helper to run in more situations where that happens. And also the record scope field is another one that you can reduce to optimize Rollup Helper to run less aggressively, to update less records, but in doing so, you might keep Rollup Helper under the Salesforce platform governor limits and be able to run more of your schedules more reliably. So those are some of the settings that we've made behind the scenes on the custom settings that will hopefully make your operating environment more optimal for Rollup Helper and keep it running as smoothly as possible. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and open up. If you have questions for Rollup Helper, you can use the chat pane, and I'll attempt to answer any questions you may have about Rollup Helper or the Winter 2014 release. If I can't answer the question, I'll definitely take it back and try to get an answer, post it to the community, or reply to everyone with that answer. Or if you want, I'll also open up the line for you to ask any questions you may have about Rollup Helper. Or if there's no questions, we'll go ahead and end the call. But it's been a pleasure, and I'm going to go ahead and check to see if there's any questions at this time. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I've unmuted everyone, and I'm also monitoring the chat pane here if you have any questions. Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat pane here, and I have unmuted the call, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask away. Okay, it looks like there's no questions. Again, we're really excited about the count and average functionality in the winter 2014 release. We really think it's going to add a lot of value to your usage of Rollup Helper. One thing I wanted to remind everyone around is we have a library of approximately 54 use cases where you can essentially get more ideas for how to use Rollup Helper. And we have a lot of customers using Rollup Helper when they have account hierarchies. When they want to track information about their customers at different levels of a customer hierarchy. So perhaps they're looking at, which customers do we have that haven't purchased a particular product or service, or which customers have purchased a product or service at not only a customer level at the place where something is shipped or where something is consumed, but also at a higher level. Maybe you have a region of customers or like a headquarters location, or you have a situation like McDonald's where you have parent McDonald's company, but then you have all the retail locations. So a lot of those situations we offer hierarchy rollups, which are a capability of Rollup Helper where you can roll up information that you can't in Salesforce. Also, activity monitoring is a huge one. Activity monitoring allows you to basically calculate the number of sales calls or any other type of categorization of tasks that you have, and really roll that information up, excuse me, based on, date filters like how many have been completed in the last 7 days or the last 30 days. So then you can track, are people using activities? Are they tracking the right activities? And that really can help with coaching and adoption as well. And we've really seen a lot of uses in project management as well as in other areas. So case management was the one area we talked about today, but there's just so many use cases. Check out the use case library on our website for more ideas. We covered the custom settings, kind of showed you this, the scheduling the rollups as well as filtering rollups. And I did want to just kind of share with you additional resources that you can leverage with Rollup Helper. One thing you can do is go out, as I mentioned, here's the link to capture more ideas for how to use Rollup Helper, the use case list. If you want to reach out to us, feel free to. Here's our phone number and email address. And we're putting a lot of great content out on rolluphelper.passagetech.com. If you go out there, I'm going to go out there and show you this right now. You'll see our Winter 2014 training site is now up and running. If you click here under What's New, you'll see specific details on how to use this functionality. So you'll see a video on how to do a count and average roll-up in more detail than I covered in this call. You'll see more explanation on how to customize the number of batch processes, as I call them. We also added the ability to activate and deactivate your roll-ups. So you'll just see more details on setting up Rollup Helper for the Winter 2014 release. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the call. And if you have any follow-up questions, I'll be sure to answer them after the webinar. But it's been great showing you Rollup Helper and the Winter 2014 release. And I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Take care, everyone.